Let me make sure that it's live on LinkedIn because we live stream these so people can just tune in and get support wherever they are.
Awesome. Get my shirt in the picture. No.
All right, cool. Let me make sure that it's live. All right, we are live. We're good. Let me check one more thing. All right. Hello, Boyan. Glad you're here. All right, check over here. Sorry. One day I'll have a production team, and then I'll have to be like this, all
No
swirly
worries.
and run back and forth and stuff. Okay, so give me 20 seconds and then we'll get you introduced. All right, hello, Mike. Hello, William. Glad you have joined us as well. Kimberly, we've got some people tuning in. Please introduce
Awesome.
yourself.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kimberly Wright. I am a nonprofit and for-profit development professional. I work in business development. I typically have various consulting contracts and clients. And yeah, I'm having a wonderful Wednesday. I hope you are too.
I am. I'm having a great time. So, as I just posted in the chat for some of you that are tuning in on the streaming services, not where we're doing this on Starmada, use the text chat. Post your questions. Feel free to share what you're working on. We'll see how Kimberly can support you through advice, feedback, insights, ideas that you should ponder, whatever it may be. But yeah, be brave, be bold. This is your opportunity to connect with a wonderful mentor. Kimberly, so you have a really interesting background. You came to one of our in person events recently and you shared some interesting tidbits. So, long time ago, we were both working in the community in different ways with bands. You had a brick and
Mhm.
mortar store that was very
Yes.
interesting and a hot spot for all of my bandmates that I was managing and
Yes.
many others in the community. And I'm just curious, like back then, or even before that, did you see yourself in the position you're in today doing what you do? And how did those early experiences you had, especially working with the brick and mortar store, kind of play into your education and your developmental, curve to be where you are today?
Okay, well, to answer the first portion of the question, absolutely not. I did not envision the degree of how explosive a lot of the work and the businesses that I worked on, they grew in a rapid and exponential pace, which was exciting. But certainly I did learn a lot. So it fed into a great deal of my education and the knowledge that I have with, all aspects of business, but also kind of having a very key skill, which is discernment and mixing that with strategy, truly. I feel that that's something that I just enjoy. So taking a look at someone's, intended goal, whether it's I want to start something from scratch or I want to fix a problem in a company, I like to look at the, you know, path in which I think would best fit. And that often gives me the insight to provide a quicker, often less steps way to get there. So I think that's been a big part of my experience and education, but also going to school was part of it too. So I felt the need to check my work.
Yeah, I have a similar kind of appreciation for what I gained from school as well, and especially like today where a lot of people are very anti-school for a lot of good reason, especially the immense debt that comes with it in America specifically. But a lot of my understanding of how I do things is because of photography courses and classes and then pursuing that degree. And when you're building a company, especially, it's very relevant to have those experiences where, like you said, you have to double check your work. You got to make sure that you aren't overlooking aspects of the syllabus or the assignment to get the grade you need and learn what you're supposed to be learning. But the other aspect that was really beneficial were the critique sessions, right? Like you get an assignment, you put it yourself into it, a photograph, a piece of art, whatever it is, and then you put it in front of the class and the teacher to get evaluated, and they tear it apart, and it can be very heart
Mhm,
wrenching. But
mhm,
the more you get exposed to that, the more you realize the value in that, and hearing how other people interpret what you've done and why they interpret it that way. And then it helps you grow your your toolbox and your approach to how you identify what's a priority that's going to help make or break your you know ability to achieve what you're after, or
mhm.
focus on something that's going to be a waste of time. And so going back to what you just shared, I'm really interested when you're helping someone or working on your own project and you're trying to project manage and identify what those priorities are, those dependencies. What kind of methodology can you share with people that are listening that could be beneficial to them to how they approach what they're working on their projects?
That's a great question. In addition to tailoring the work being done, I also tailor the project management only because I like to look at the interaction as a partnership, if you will. Like, we're going to hold hands and walk down this pathway that is going to have some benchmarks and things that come along the way. And really, truly, I think, most effective acknowledgement and understanding has been to truly see a partner for how they work, how they function, what their style is in terms of communication and aspects like that, and then also what their bandwidth looks like. So, I have various, uh, you know, I guess we could call them apps or tools, technological tools that I can suggest. Trello, Monday, there's a vast number of tools out there that work really well. But for me personally, I find that um, I tailor each and every client to the project management style because it helps them truly be participatory in the process. So, I've had various things like I'll use point systems in our benchmarks and it really I know that's like a non-answer, but truly, I mean, getting savvy, especially if you're doing a lot of clients with very big projects and then maybe some handful that are smaller projects, it's so effective for me. But I don't want to suggest this for anybody else. It's just maybe my brain does well with chaos, but to really find which tool is going to work best for you. And maybe it's the tool that works best for you as the project manager or the person that is going to be managing the overview of, what the outcomes are going to be. But, like I said, there are various tools out there that you can look up. And I suggest to everybody, and this is part of, I think, why I going back to the education, I really love to learn. So I like to get my hands dirty in learning what's out there and seeing what fits for me. So, yeah. And if you guys are interested in finding any specific names or things, I can gladly talk to you on the sideline about it because there are a number of different tools you can use.
No, I think that's a great answer, and a couple things stand out that are very important for everyone to recognize. You got to experiment. You got to figure out what's going to work best for you, because yeah, everyone's brain is wired a little bit differently, and what you feel most comfortable with, what's most intuitive, what's most effective for you is going to differ. So it's very important to do your best to be in a very, exploratory mode where you're learning about these different things, trying them out, and running little tests. And the beautiful thing about project management skills is it can apply to anything, right? You don't need to be doing it with a client or for your business
So
venture.
true.
It's like, oh, we've got a birthday party coming up. Like, let's plan the birthday. Or, oh, I want to make a dinner for, like, my friends. Like, the simplest little thing. Or yourself, right?
Mm.
Everything's a
Yeah,
project. And it can be approached with any sort of project management tool or methodology out there. And you can experiment with it and learn from it. And the other thing that you're touching on is context. How important it is to take the time to establish the correct context around your unique situation, who you're working with, what you're trying to accomplish, what resources you have, time constraints, other limitations, whatever it is, and work within that
Mhm.
very specific context to ensure that you're doing what's most necessary given that context. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, one thing that you also brought up that's very relevant to your background is this idea that it's a two-way discussion or interaction, engagement with different types of people, whether those are clients, customers, whatever. And that made me think about the core of branding. A lot of people don't understand branding as a two-way kind of interaction between you, your company, or whatever it is, and others, right? And how they're
Mhm.
interpreting it. You can do whatever you want to try to craft a brand and put it out there, but you got to be aware of how, again, people are going to interpret that and think about that. And this is going to lead into a question that William asked in a moment. But I'd like to hear about your thoughts in regards to how, the foundation of branding in your idea or in your mind is approached, and how you try to have controls over what you can't control in regards to how other people interact or interpret what you're putting out there.
So, the illusion of control. Um, you know, that's a really tough um that's a tough one. I think it's much like when I let me own my own experiences. When I begin, I always kind of lay out some, even if it's a broad brush stroke. I like to lay out a plan per se or a strategy behind whatever the problem that is that we're going to solve. And the key to it always is these making these benchmarks. And I think there is a very it's an overlooked value when you look at the benchmarks because the benchmarks can really the way you set up benchmarks along the way is how you really truly um become comes in circumstances. So, obviously you want anybody who's in a company wants to be able to be malleable enough to pivot to the needs, the demands, the whatever can change. And there are so many uncontrollable. That's why I kind of giggle about the illusion of control. We certainly try to build things out based on infrastructure and formulation and protocols and things like that. But certainly, as we all know in life, we can plan, but many times there are things that are just going to be out of circumstance. Now, I hope I answered your question, or I got to what you were looking for, because that's kind of what I understood.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of this isn't, to arrive at a very specific thing, but to hear from you, and that was wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
There was a little
Oh, okay.
technical issue for those on
Oh,
the other streams, not over here on Starmada. Apologize for that.
oh,
We had
okay.
a little moment where it cut out for just a couple seconds, but
Okay, no
it was
worries.
fine. But again, like, yeah, let's go into what William Tong asked. That's kind of related. William Tong asked, I haven't updated my LinkedIn in over a decade. What can I do to get it up to speed? So when in this thought process, right? Like your LinkedIn is an aspect of your branding, how you're branding,
Yeah.
yourself. And when someone's considering that, what kind of factors do you think are important to be aware of and kind of again prioritize in regards to having some control over what you want to the image that you want to present to people?
Well, as we've kind of acknowledged, the outcome is a key aspect that you really want to consider. And like you said, it is a form of your own branding. So you really want to think to yourself, what do I want? What types of employers, or what aspect in whatever industry am I looking to align myself to? Right. So if you're interested in kind of delving into one aspect in your career, whatever direction you've maybe been going in, or maybe if you want to pivot, that this is a perfect time to really acknowledge that and dig deep about that, so that you can brand yourself. And then you look at what you've done over the time and see if you can find, because the beauty about um, the work we do is some of our talents and the way we accomplish things in various environments can, you know, be valuable in many aspects of business, regardless of what industry you may go into. So take a look at, what have you done? How do you want to emphasize your talents? And what are things that you feel that you really want to be acknowledged by the audience? And I would really look at that. And then obviously you want to just go through and list and update whatever you've been doing, but also really think about, you know, it's kind of like a canvas. You want to paint it in the type of um, colors and things that you're aiming to attract. They always say, become what you want in the world. And, or maybe I have that a little off, but you get what I'm saying. So yeah, that's where I think I would start, is really look at what you want the outcome to look like. What do you want your profile to look like? And start there, and then obviously fill in the blanks with creating a small little outline or whatever you would like to emphasize some of the work you've done in the last 10 years.
William, I hope that was helpful. Those of you that are new joining us, welcome, especially if you're on LinkedIn and YouTube and Twitch. Please use the text chat to ask your own questions or share what you're working on so Kimberly can find ways to support you through advice, feedback, insights, and yeah, informed questions to make you think about things differently. Dr. Paxmore over on Twitch just joined and asked, Kimberly, what is your field? If you'd be so kind as to share a little bit of background. I again, like I know that you in the past have worked with musicians, you've worked with nonprofits. You're going to be on a trip going with a nonprofit to climb a 3,000-year-old tree that few people are allowed to do. So yeah, I know it's a wonderfully mixed bag, but it'd be interesting, yeah, to hear in your own like kind of words what your journey's been, touching on some of the milestones of your background.
Thank you for asking. So I I'm gonna start with the fact that um I love adventure and I love new things and I love to learn. So I have allowed those aspects about my personality paint the the picture of what my experience has been and my background. So, as a business development professional, I help people create ideas into reality, monetize things like art, music, products, services. I often and at some point in my career decided to really focus on nonprofit engagements because I really love making the world a better place in many aspects. But because I love such a variety, I work with clients that are all over the map. As Gary just mentioned, one of my clients is a nonprofit organization, Ancient Forest Society, that they do conservation and research to protect ancient forests and old trees. So many of the trees that they work on are giant sequoias, redwoods, just basically these phenomenal forests that have been around thousands of years, and they climb the trees and do the work, whether it's research or conservation. So I've worked with several medical and aspects of medical. I've worked with entrepreneurs, many artists and musicians, um, churches. I do have a background in, you know, the music industry, and I'm currently working on, booking concerts and, working with touring acts. It's really kind of like the sky's the limit. Going back to, my education and experience, it's a matter of understanding business and strategy, and I utilize the knowledge that I've kind of gathered over the years to help people either solve, large company problems. Oftentimes it can look into organizational behaviors and things like that. But also help small startups get from one growth phase to the next. But the true common denominator is I help people make money.
Which is important in
Yeah,
this very very. I'll avoid getting too negative with it, but
yeah,
yeah,
don't
it's
go there.
unfortunately a necessity that we all need. But
Yeah.
yeah, but I love that you're doing it in a way that's helping people who are making very interesting contributions to the world through art, music, medical, nonprofits that are doing good work to help people. So it's wonderful
Hmm.
that you're focused on the right way or the right people that need the most help, especially the artist.
Yeah.
Like yeah. Okay, so going back to
Yeah.
the group questions, um, we have real quick. William had a quick request following up on his LinkedIn profile question. Do you have any websites or resources to recommend that might be helpful?
Helpful for his LinkedIn.
Yeah, for the link. Yeah, for his LinkedIn. We have Dr.
Oh
Paxman that's
gosh.
saying just throw it in Chat GPT and let it do its thing. Which,
Yeah. Okay. So yes, of course, that is always going to be the quickest, easiest choice is have AI help you. But um, I would like to caution you of just a couple of things. And don't get me wrong, I have no judgment on any of you that love to use AI to get there. But just number one, be very cognizant of what your inputs are in order to get the outputs. So be sure to really, because that's where the sweet spot is, especially with AI. But also do not take what AI gives you and paste it into a spot ever. Take the time, look through it, and just use it as something that maybe you can uh, use as a springboard and kind of work from it as opposed to let it do your work for you. Because on the other side of these things, as a person that is just here to help you, people know when you use AI and it doesn't always look great for you. So just be cognizant of using tools in a way that isn't going to make you look bad and is going to help you get to the end result. Because I am not against using tools. Tools are great. All tools are great as long as you know how to use them. So that's my little statement about that.
I think that's a very, very wise statement to make. I think that is also a very kindly presented wise statement. So great job being a wonderful mentor with that one. Let's jump over to Jorge's question. Jorge asked, I worked with nonprofits as a freelancer some years ago. If you had to choose, what would be the biggest marketing need or pain point for nonprofits? I have an idea, but I'd like to hear you.
Well, there are a couple of things, and it depends on because the pain points for nonprofits change based on their size. But uh typically speaking, you have a couple of things that stand out for me. One is you have people wearing way too many hats and doing the same job, and that often it I always think better together, and when you use more minds to get the right tool. So someone might be brilliant at one thing that isn't brilliant at the other, and they're doing both projects or both jobs. The other is obviously how people fundraise. And nonprofits are always searching for money. That's always going to be the story. And I think the way in which some development professionals get stuck in some of the old tactics or things like that has inhibited the way people perceive nonprofits and their direct impact and value in whatever their mission may be. So I hope that wasn't too ornate of an answer, but that's truly where I look because I do work with so many nonprofits. And yeah, that's
No,
the best way I can
no, that's great. And it actually kind of
distill it.
brings up something else that I think is important. So we have a lot of entrepreneurs that come through the community and, well, all these different communities that I find myself in or a part of, where there's a person who wants to start a nonprofit and they don't understand the clear differences between operating a nonprofit versus operating a for-profit, especially when it comes to generating capital. They think of a nonprofit in the same context as a for-profit. For example, you know, seeking investors versus seeking donors, or you know, focusing on building a product which isn't quite monetized or managed appropriately for a nonprofit to
Hmm.
meet their specific tax requirements or whatever it might be. So I'd like to hear from you, if you could share some of those distinctions and how people should rethink a nonprofit versus a for-profit, especially if they're trying to consider if their business should be a nonprofit or for-profit. Like, what kind of very fundamental concept should they be honing in on?
That's a wonderful question because I do get that a lot with the fact that I work with both for profit and nonprofit. Um, and again, it's rather than looking at the outcome, you want to look at the audience, right? What is your target? What are you solving? What is your purpose? You know, you really need to look at, if you're already in business, what is how what is the overall structure of the business model that you're currently running on, and it's important to see some key distinctions. Geez, without an example, it's a little challenging because it really truly is. There are a handful of ways to look at your business model, and maybe you're a sole proprietor and you should be something else without trying to become a nonprofit. And truly, it has to do with how are you making money? What is the driving force for the demand that you are somehow supplying whatever the solution is? Sometimes it's a service, sometimes it's a product. But when you go into becoming a nonprofit, you have to understand that the entire function and model is completely different. There is no true ownership, and there are going to be aspects about your mission, because everything is based in the mission. Now, for example, the symphony is a nonprofit organization, and you wouldn't imagine it is, but when you look at what it costs to put on one show for every single musician, because these are professional musicians and we need to think about people being able to have a living wage, it's an exorbitant amount of money to put on one concert. And being able to provide these opportunities for everyone to be able to enjoy such an experience, you then are creating a giving or making the world a better place by exposing more people to this type of experience. So that's where you start to understand that you can sell a service, product, commodity and still be a nonprofit, but you have to really be careful that you're not lost on the function and the purpose. And of course, I'm not a CPA, but I really think considering aspects of how you make money and how you um, you know, categorize and allocate the money that you're using in your business model has a lot to do with how to get the advice for really truly making this decision. Because I always like to loop in people like CPAs that can guide you, or someone that helps with the money side of things. So I hope I answered that question. It isn't a very easy across the board suggestion, at least not from my vantage point.
Yeah, again, it goes back to context and taking the time to go slow and steady and really dig into the different factors that you're operating within and limitations and what your goals are. I love that you brought up the CPAs
Exactly.
too. It's also another call, a similar call to find lawyers, find good lawyers that have experience in the field, the industry, the market, the type of nonprofit or for-profit business that you are creating or want to create, and
Mhm.
walk them through. Again, the context of your situation, what your goals are, what you're trying to do, how you see the money is going to flow. That you're like working in tandem with the CPA and the lawyers to ensure that everything is accounted for and you're de-risking the risk that you have to take on this venture and manage it and operate and grow it, so you don't fall into a trap that you laid for yourself because you decided that you didn't want to take the time or you thought that it wasn't worth the money for that expert advice and guidance. So it's very important stuff that is important, or it could be of critical to your success or failure. And then, we have different lawyers and CPAs do office hours often too. One of the things that everyone should be aware of, if you're not, there's resources in the community to seek out. If you need that help, you don't have the finances for it, law schools, universities, figure out
Mm.
who is sponsoring or mentoring different events like this that have a a community spirit, a desire to help those that are in the need, the most need for their services or support. they often have different ways that you can work with them, either on deferred basis, a discounted basis, free basis. Who knows? It's worth having a conversation and see what they're willing to do to
Right.
get you the help that you need. Okay, so let's jump over to well, one thing to think about. William added a little bit of clarification. William was asking for specific tools or resources to get his linked up to speed. If there's something to help speed that up a little bit faster. I don't know if that was already addressed or not. I have been jumping around to many
LinkedIn
chats.
actually does have AI tools to do it for you. So you can legitimately just, you don't even need to go anywhere else. You can do it right from LinkedIn. It might be maybe a sign up for our premium. I am not exactly sure. Um, but
Yeah,
just consider that.
for something like that, at least it's you sign up for a month, use it once, and then you unsubscribe. But the nice thing about LinkedIn though is if you are updating your resume or your profile, updating your resume, and you're crafting it to be more specific, again, building a personal brand or using your LinkedIn for a personal branding tool to connect you with very specific types of people, the premium LinkedIn is really good for that because they got tools to very
Hmm.
specifically target people on LinkedIn that fit very,
Yes.
certain industries, fields, companies, whatever it is that you're trying to connect with or get a job with or work with. So it might be totally worth it for the month in addition to those extra like, AI tools to help you with rewriting things. But yeah. Okay, so Mark Mathis over here on Start Mata is
Hmm.
sharing their nonprofit,
Hi, Mark.
humanitarianimplants.org. If anyone wants to check it out, I'll drop a link. And Mark shared a little bit of context. Mark created the idea but has no time. It's a big problem for many that they're very passionate about. They give implants, or they're looking to give implants instead of money. They trace it. There's less fraud involved in this. I'm looking at the website, and I'll post the link over in the other chats real quick. Hang on a second. Let me get it over on LinkedIn too.
So Mark's looking to do a nonprofit, it looks like, because he says fundraising is the first step unless you're looking for investment.
Yeah, so it seems like Mark's main struggle is they want to get this nonprofit they're passionate about that they've started off the ground and sustainable on its own. But they need help finding people to come in and take the lead on it, and also need help with fundraising, finding donors, and other ways to get capital in. And Mark, again, feel free to add more context and what you need help with. And yeah, it's set up as a nonprofit, so specifically, yeah, looking for capital from donors and other sorts of like nonprofit channels of capital. So yeah, what advice do you have, or I guess concerns you might have as well in regards to building a team for this so it can be running with Mark being more hands off, especially at an early stage like this?
Can you still see me and hear me? Oh, okay.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure it looked like my internet was acting funny.
Oh,
So,
your camera's frozen right now, but we can hear you perfectly.
okay. So Mark has a nonprofit, and can you say again what the question, what he just needs to start? Can you repeat that? Because I
Yeah,
think my
yeah,
internet.
yeah. So the main kind of point of focus for Mark is getting this nonprofit that is registered 501(c). If I see that, yeah, 501(c)(3),
C3.
uh,
Yeah.
trying to get it moving, up and running. They need help bringing on more people to operate it because Mark's too busy to take on a lead role with this
Okay.
nonprofit that they've started. And yeah, that's like the main thing is getting more people on board. And so again,
Okay.
like yeah, hearing from your perspective, again, like the challenges or concerns with bringing people on, whether, a lot of people too, and I don't know if Mark is, if, kind of guilty of this, but a lot of nonprofits think that they can just bring on volunteers in full-time, part-time roles for free labor as volunteers. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so, this might be an important point of discussion, hearing from you, the distinctions between a volunteer and someone that you're using as free labor. So, this too. Yeah, yeah, ideas.
Okay, so typically starting a nonprofit, uh, when you establish your nonprofit, I, because we're in California, assume that you have done this with two other people at the minimum, because it is required to have a minimum of three people on the board of directors. So typically, as a founder, if you will, um, you would want to sit down with these other two people, unless they are your cat and your dog. They might also have an opinion, but you want to sit down and really strategize on, first and foremost, you should have already established your mission. And I like to say, just because I'm a big fan of looking at the horizon and formulating, after having a mission is, what do you do, right? Um, and then what do you want to do with, or go, where do you want to go with what you're doing? So it's not just saying, this is what we do. You're also saying we intend on, so that you have like this direction and where you want to go. And then obviously you should have, I hope by now, what your activities are, which align with what you're doing. So if you're feeding hungry children, maybe you're doing weekly dinners, or you're providing groceries for certain households, whatever that is. But you should have at the minimum these things. And then once you have sat down with your two board members, you need to consider, how can we build on what we're doing so that you can begin the function of what your intention is, and start either one, doing the activities to encourage people to support you or donate to you, which also aligns with expanding your audience. So, whenever you're doing activities, you will engage with other people besides the three of you. So, you will begin to go out into the community. So, it's kind of a three-pronged situation here. You start with what y- your activities are, whatever your actions are, whether in the community or whatever aspect your mission has been based in or rooted into. And how are you going to expand your audience? And then how are you going to communicate that? So, those will be the things that will provide you springboard, to take steps into getting people to know about you and wanting to support you. Um, it is a very, can be a very complex thing once you know, open up the can of worms. But the most simplistic way for me to distill that process is basically that: sit with your board members and be aware that as a board member, you are fiduciarily responsible for this organization. So, what that means is you need to figure out how to make the money to do the things that you're doing, and also support the organization in some like facet. Typically, I always say the key to a board member is either they're going to bring money, they're going to bring work, experience, uh, a network of people, um, or some facet of all those three. or all of those items. I'm sorry. And that's really what you're going to do is get the three of you together, start working on your activities, start trying to build on making a little bit of money. Once you start building on some kind of money, then you would want to hire someone to help you. Now, going back to your statement about getting free labor, um, this is a tough thing. And I think you're right, Gary. I do think that sometimes people who are not well versed on running an organization that is not for profit, um, in their beginning stages think, let's just have someone help. But there is always going to be a very, at least if you want to be smart about the way you engage with the community, you have to have a clear line of a volunteer or intern in a for profit, or you can also intern for a nonprofit, and a staff member or someone within the organization. And that clear line is typically, are they responsible for something? So, if you're having people contact you and the volunteer needs to keep the ball rolling, now you've gotten yourself in a situation. Volunteers should not be responsible for follow up. They shouldn't be responsible for ensuring things are getting done or any type of thing. They are there to support the actions of those who are responsible. So, typically I would always align those things with the activities that relate to your mission that show that you're creating community impact so that you can engage and invite your community to participate. So, if you're not a community based organization, certainly there's other aspects of the good that you're doing in the world. And it's in that sweet spot of the good, that you will find the volunteers to invite them to participate. They are not there to be responsible for anything. So, I feel like that's the best way to describe that. Um, yeah, you have to always think a volunteer may or may not ever show up. I mean, that's not the optimal situation, but that's how you want to think about it. That this is an optional thing for them just to show up and help out. So you're going to be functioning and running with or without the volunteer. It's just always nice to have people to join you in more, more hands to make the world a better place, if you will.
I
I
appreciate
hope I
that.
answered that.
No, absolutely. I appreciate the distinction too, especially in the way that you framed that and presented it. Yeah, like the worst thing you can do is give very specific responsibilities and control to a volunteer that they have nothing,
Right.
to kind of keep them committed to that, or accountability there. And that's why it's
Right.
important, to hire people, and not just hire people, but hire people and provide them with compensation that is going to give them the needs that they have. So this happens all, like, with startups and, like, early stage companies. We can touch on that too, but this idea that this person is getting paid, so they're getting paid, so they got to do this thing, without recognizing that you're not
Mhm.
paying them enough to meet their needs, and so they're forced to get another job or take on another opportunity that's going to pay them better, right? And that could happen anytime, especially with volunteers. Like, I've got, like, myself, I'm a photographer, and there's been opportunities too where I'm like, oh yeah, I'll if yeah, I'll volunteer for this, but then a job comes up, it's going to pay me, and I'm like, I really need to take that job. I gotta pay some bills. And
Yeah.
then I go,
Yeah,
sorry, I can't be
exactly.
there. I gotta take this gig, right? And it's like,
Yep.
you can't count on a volunteer in that way. The same way you can't count on
Yes.
an employee or a contractor that you're not paying enough to keep them feeling that you're the priority, right? Like that there's no need for them to have to take another gig to pay their bills or something like that. So yeah, I think that was really
Exactly.
good how you presented that and framed that. Yeah, people, new people that are joining us, welcome. If you haven't heard this before, you don't see it in the chat, use the text chat to ask questions or share what you're working on. And Kimberly will hopefully be able to share some great insights, feedback, advice, or provide you with questions to make you think about this a little bit better and differently, and hopefully unlock some nugget of wisdom or innovation that leads to success. Yeah. So let me just take a quick look at some things over here. Mohid, I am so bad at speaking in general and pronunciating things, so please forgive me. Mohidin Ahmed, welcome. You added a little bit of commentary saying, one thing I can tell you from someone being from the nonprofit capital, that in global scene, it's very close to scam or bad execution. Yes, in USA, that may be much better due to regulatory implication. So essentially, like, yeah, there's another like aspect to be aware of, especially when you're looking at various nonprofits and you want to be a volunteer, you want to be a donor, you want to contribute. There's a lot of organizations that are poorly run and some that are outright
Mhm.
scams. So touching on that, Kimberly, what are some ways to vet a potential, nonprofit to work for or engage with as a volunteer or a donor or in some other capacity? What recommendations do you have in regards to, yeah, vetting?
So, I think the key, obviously, when you look at an organization is to look at the impact that they're reporting. Most organizations, hopefully, will have an annual report. If you don't see an annual report on their website, I certainly would recommend asking for one. Um, and that sometimes will tell you one piece of the puzzle. Typically, annual reports will distill the important aspects of what they accomplished and how they impacted the solution or the problem that they're attempting to address. So, again, that's based on their mission. If you are having trouble with that, I also I know that nonprofits are often acknowledged by several of these um, organizations like Candid, for example. They acknowledge foundations and things of the like, nonprofits, and they basically vet them for you. And you can take a look at what that looks like. If you're not feeling that you have the right answers, always contact them. You can have them work a little bit for your money, just by asking some key questions. But I think the simplest way to really look at what the organization is doing and how they're actually functioning is those two aspects: finding their annual reports and looking at, reporting of any kind, and then also acknowledgement through any of the reputable nonprofits that are basically databases for a nonprofit. And you can find those on, there is a website called Candid. I believe it used to be called something else, but now it's called Candid. It's a website, .org. Um, and yeah, it used to be GuideStar. There's also several nonprofit, like Center for Nonprofits and things like that, nationally and worldwide, that can give you some uh, understanding of what the nonprofit's doing. But if you're not finding this particular nonprofit in any of these places, and you're not seeing that they have an annual report and they're not able to provide you with the data that you're looking for, then I would say maybe don't donate. But certainly that is the simplest way, is really truly engaging. Someone should be on the other end being willing to let you know what they're doing. Sometimes they'll even invite you to participate to see the actual hands-on work that they're doing. So yeah, just get to know your nonprofits. Typically speaking, people give based off of something that speaks to them, whether it's animals or children or disability or a medical condition or the arts. There's just so many different nonprofits out there and so many different needs that people are trying to provide. So just find something that aligns with you, get to know the nonprofit, what are they doing in the world. Ask for some key stats. They should always have financial records, so those are typically always available, and they are uh, available for the public to view. So those are my suggestions.
Great suggestions, and I love the list of resources for people to check out as well. So I appreciate that. Dr. Paxmore says there is a distinction between profit and revenue, and most people do not understand it. This was in relation to something that was being shared earlier by you. Uh, my advice for everyone, especially if you're trying to run a business, for profit, nonprofit, take a financial accounting class. Find them online from reputable universities.
Hmm.
You can go to your community college. It's super simple, easy, good class to take, and that will help you with understanding the distinctions and a lot more about what goes into your business, and help you also be better prepared to sit down with your CPA or lawyers and go over the nuances of your financial models and how you intend to operate or are operating your business, so you can clean things up or make sure that you're doing things as effectively as possible and preventing, again, those potential pitfalls ahead of you. We're coming up on time. Last call for questions. Throw them in the chat. While we sit on that real quick.
Just want to make
Yes.
a plug real quick. If you any of you out there like to golf and want to support a program that helps foster kids, we have a golf tournament on October 20th. Um, it will be at the Spanish Hills Golf Course in Camarillo. So October 20th, anybody interested in golfing or supporting, this is a very heartfelt project for foster kids in California. And we know that being a foster kid is certainly not an easy thing. So if anybody has questions, wants to reach out, you can check me out on LinkedIn. Just send me a message and I'm happy to share any information.
Do you have a URL you can drop in the chat, and I can drop them in all the chats?
I should, but I did not take the time
Okay.
to prepare for this. So yeah, just connect with me. I can put, let's see if I can put my
Yeah,
LinkedIn
I've got
in
your
there.
LinkedIn. I'll redistribute that.
Yeah, that would be the best way, and I can send the data. I apologize, guys. I have had back-to-backs today. So,
No worries.
but certainly please reach out. I am always happy to help.
Awesome. Okay. Ghostbuster. The video is busted because the internet hates everyone, including you. No, it's just,
Sorry about that, guys.
yeah, no, it's just how it goes sometimes. I'm, done this many times now. It's usually my internet that's going wrong, so don't worry about it. But I'm dropping in the LinkedIn for everyone in the chats. Let me actually drop it over here and over here. Um, so another thing that comes up real quick, I think we're done with the questions from everyone. So something I want to touch on real quick before we go, because it's very important. A lot of people are desperately trying to market their business, right? And connect with, do business development. I'm curious, in your perspective, Kimberly, what advice can you share with people who are so desperate that they're leaning into just producing lots of AI slop and spamming people consistently in order to make an introduction or cold pitch them or anything else like that? What kind of advice do you have or suggestions do you have for people to build those relationships with potential customers, clients, and really start to generate those sales without leaning into just the mountain of AI slop that is overwhelming all of our inboxes right now?
That's a great question, and I love that you asked it because this is very important. I am going to say this. It's very easy to be fooled thinking that it's a numbers game because sometimes you can manipulate numbers by doing something intentionally. So rather than trying to get as many people to tap on as many, interactions and overdo it on the numbers, take a step back. Be more intentional and thoughtful about knowing your audience and truly make a connection with those that you feel are going to be your best aligned and most interested audience member. Because there is nothing more important than being thoughtful when you're marketing or promoting anything or yourself. You have to know your audience. It's not about you, it's about them. So if you know what their interests are they going to care about what you have to say? You really have to know that going into any interaction, any conversation, any touch point. And I would say just pull back a little on the numbers game and start being more thoughtful and procure the right conversations and do them with true cultivating interest rather than, just like trying to slam through another amount of people. And when you truly cultivate a relationship, what I have found to be true in my life is that you end up getting more in the numbers game in the long run because somehow you have enough of a connection that they then tell their friends and their friends then tell their friends. And so you've somehow manipulated this numbers game that you've been tricked into falling, into by just having a really good interaction with one person who is actually interested in what you have to say.
I love that, and it builds on pretty much everything that comes up with every mentor every time. And it was what, why I do this is to help people build authentic relationships with each other by being a member of their community. So
Yep.
it's really good hearing from you, someone that's, has a mountain of experience and is an expert in, branding, marketing, business development. Reiterate that for people. Yeah, be a good neighbor. Be someone that
Yep.
others want to be around, spend time with, support, work with, all these things. And yeah, separate yourself from the mountain of AI slop coming at them by being a human.
Mhm. Yep. Yep.
Awesome. Okay, Kimberly, you've been a fantastic mentor. It's a wonderful office hour. Everyone that's tuned in, thank you so much for contributing with questions and thoughts and your own little insights. Kimberly, do you have any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
I just want to say thank you, Gary. It's been lovely chatting with you. And thank you to all of you who had any interest and wanted to check in. I hope you all have a great time. And remember to just be authentic to what you want to do and make sure you know why you're doing it. So, cheers, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you.